So we are reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert T. Kiyosaki. We are on chapter 6 of the book, lesson 5, and chapter 5 of the PDF, lesson 5, page number, page number 139 of the book and 97 of the PDF.
Lesson 5. The rich invent money. Often in the real world, it's not the smart who get ahead, but the bold. Last night, I took a break from writing and watched a TV program on the history of a young man named Alexander Graham Bell. Bell had just patented his telephone and was having growing pains because the demand for his new invention was so strong. Needing a bigger company, he then went to the giant at that time, Western Union, and asked them if they would buy his patent and his tiny company. He wanted $100,000 for the whole package. The president of Western Union scoffed at him and turned him down, saying the price was ridiculous. The rest is history. A multi-billion-dollar industry emerged and AT&T was born.
So for those of you who don't know, AT&T was one of the biggest companies in America, and they literally had a monopoly over all telecommunication in America, and they were broken into 5 companies, etc., and then they merged again and all that, but it's still one of the largest companies in America.
The evening news came on right after the story of Alexander Graham Bell. On the news was a story of another downsizing at a local company. The workers were angry and complained that the company ownership was unfair. A terminated manager of about 45 years of age had his wife and 2 babies at the plant and was begging the guards to let him talk to the owners to ask if they would reconsider his termination. He had just bought a house and was afraid of losing it. The camera focused in on his pleading for all the world to see. Needless to say, it held my attention. I have been teaching professionally since 1984. It has been a great experience and a rewarding one. It is also a disturbing profession, for I have taught thousands of individuals, and I see one thing in common in all of us, myself included. We all have tremendous potential, and we all are blessed with gifts. Yet, the one that holds all of us back is some degree of self doubt. It is not so much the lack of technical information that holds us back, but more the lack of self confidence. Some are more affected than others. Once we leave school, most of us know that it is not so much a matter of college degrees or good grades that count. In the real world, outside of academics, something more than just grades is required. I have heard it called I have heard it called many things: guts, chutzpah, balls, audacity, bravado, cunning, daring, tenacity, and brilliance. This factor, whatever it is labeled, ultimately decides one's future much more than school grades do.
Okay, so if you really see, most of us have self-doubt, right? Now, all the processes that we are doing in awareness actually work on your self-doubt. If I can make that connection, if I can get downloads as to what is the direction I need to take, I get intuitive, I have intuitive abilities to help me in making my decisions, then automatically the self-doubt starts to fall and you can start taking bold and better decisions, right? So you can connect with your gut. And the research that was done, that most CEOs of big companies or people who are successful, they always act from their gut. Now over here, he's mentioned lots of words to say that you're tenacious, you're bold, you're able to take the decisions very fast, you are brilliant, etc., etc. Okay, but unless you have that connect, that gut feel, it becomes difficult to become any one of these things that he has mentioned over here. And that is what the excursion, or now what Indra Bhabi was saying, what the personal development and the other programs that we are doing allow you to access for yourself. That is why I say that all these programs are self-empowering. They empower you to be yourself. That is the most important thing, I think, or the most important gift anyone can give to themselves.
Inside each of us is one of these brave, brilliant, and daring characters. There is also the flip side of that character, people who could get down on their knees and beg if necessary. After a year in Vietnam as a Marine Corps pilot, I got to know both of those characters inside of me intimately. One is not better than the other. Yet, as a teacher, I recognized that it was excessive fear and self doubt that were the greatest detractors of personal genius. It broke my heart to see students know the answers, yet lack the courage to act on the answer. Often in the real world, it's not the smart who get ahead, but the bold.
So, so this is very, very important, right? Take a step forward, transcend the fear, face the fear. The only way to transcend the fear is to face it. And unless you face it, you're not going to transcend it. So over here, the way he says, people know the answer, they know how to do it, but they are fearful of doing it, of being rebuked, of all that stuff. So the more centered you are, the more in equanimity you are, the better off you will be in performing, right? I have an idea, but if I don't do anything about it, then that idea is useless. So thinking or planning is always concurrent with doing. Now, when we used to go for, when I go for energy field rectification to people's houses and we check the energy fields, there are two frequencies which come out. One is for the head, which is where the planning is done, and the other is the agya, which is from where the implementation is done. Now, many times I have found that the planning is okay, but the implementation is off. Then they will not achieve. Things will not work. Okay, now the implementation is good, but the planning is not good. Two steps forward, one step back. One step forward, two steps back. Why? Because the thinking, the process, the disha is not correct. So whatever you're implementing, there'll always be a question mark. So the implementation has to go hand in hand with the planning. Otherwise, you are not going to achieve what you really want to achieve. Now, this is where that intuitive ability also starts coming in, because that helps in the planning. That helps in just taking a spot call, a judgment call, and just move on it. And when you are in the flow and you're into the synchronistic kind of field, then automatically things start to happen, right? And that's the beauty of the Monroe process, because it allows you to access that field and allows you to become bold, to do what needs to be done at that moment, even though you may intellectually have a doubt that it can't be done. But that voice, that inner voice, allows you to become bold in doing what you really need to do at that point in time. That trust develops.
Inside each of us is one of these brave, brilliant, and daring characters. There is also the flip side of that character, people who could get down on their knees and beg if necessary. After a year in the Vietnam as a Marine Corps pilot, I got to know both of those characters inside of me intimately. One is not better than the other.
You're on the next paragraph.
In my personal experience, your financial genius requires both technical knowledge as well as courage. If fear is too strong, the genius is suppressed. In my classes, I strongly urge students to learn to take risks, to be bold, and to let their genius convert that fear into power and brilliance. It works for some and just terrifies others. I have come to realize that for most people, When it comes to the subject of money, they would rather play it safe. I have had to field questions such as, why take risks? Why should I bother developing my financial IQ? Why should I become financially literate? And I
So what is happening over here, right? Now, again, if you are not willing to see what is coming there and you want to have blinkers in your eyes, then it creates a problem. If you know what is there, you know about something, and then you take a conscious call of not doing it, that is all right. But if you're not making yourself literate about something, you don't know about something, and you debunk it, then you're the biggest idiot, let me tell you. So without knowing something, we must not comment on anything. And this is something that we learned in the four agreements. Okay. One of the tenets of the four agreements when we read that book was, do not make assumptions, right? So unless you know about something, do not make assumptions, don't talk about it. So over here, if you're not financially literate, then how do you know what it's all about? So you might as well experience it. And this is very, very important. The more you learn, the more you open your vision out, the better you become, the bolder you become, the more tenacious you become, because you know, you operate from knowing, not just going blind anywhere, right? So that's why learning new things becomes very, very important in my view. Taking a more holistic view, he's of course talking about financial literacy. I'm talking about expanding our field, expanding our knowledge, expanding our knowing becomes extremely important.
answer just to have more options. There are huge changes up ahead. In the coming years, there will be more people just like the young inventor Alexander Graham Bell. There will be 100 people like Bill Gates, and hugely successful companies like Microsoft created every year all over the world. And there also will be many more bankruptcies, layoffs, and downsizings. So, why bother developing your financial IQ? No one can answer that but you. Yet, I can tell you why I myself do it. I do it because it is the most exciting time to be alive. I'd rather be welcoming change than dreading change. I'd rather be excited about making millions than worrying about not getting a raise. This period we are in now is a most exciting time, unprecedented in our world's history. Generations from now, people will look back at this period of time and remark at what an exciting era it must have been. It was the death of the old and birth of the new. It was full of turmoil and it was exciting.
So I think every period is like that. When you look back, every time there's a change coming. Every moment in time there is a change. And if you can engage the change, then you become the better for it. If you start operating out of fear of the change, then it puts you down and you go bankrupt or you get written off. So you have to ride the wave. That's the most important thing, I think.
So, why bother developing your financial IQ? Because if you do, you will prosper greatly. And if you don't, this period of time will be a frightening one. It will be a time of watching some people move boldly forward while others cling to worn out life preservers. Land was wealth 300 years ago, so the person who owned the land owned the wealth. Later, wealth was in factories and production, and America rose to dominance. The industrialist owned the wealth. Today, wealth is in information, and the person who has the most timely information owns the wealth. The problem is that information flies around the world at the speed of light. The new wealth cannot be contained by boundaries and borders as lands and factories were. The changes will be faster and more dramatic. There will be a dramatic increase in the number of new multimillionaires. There also will be those who are left behind.
So again, wealth transforms. So पहले जिसके पास, the person who had the land was the boss, then who had the production capacity was the boss, then who could sell the material, who had the market was the boss. Now it has come to information. Whoever has the information is the boss. That person is the wealthy person. So you see, most of the tech companies are today the biggest companies in the world. At one time, it was like the steel companies. Okay. Pehle, it was the agricultural companies. So like that, everything keeps transforming. And I'm sure tomorrow it's going to be the companies which have a hold in space ultimately. I think it is going towards that. All the sci-fi movies, etc., which are coming is indicative of that. The wealth will be outside our outside our normal Earth, right? Mining in asteroids and all that, I think, is going to start in due course. And those people will be the most wealthy people there.
I find so many people struggling today, often working harder simply because they cling to old ideas. They want things to be the way they were and they resist change. I know people who are losing their jobs or their houses and they blame technology or the economy or their boss. Sadly, they fail to realize that they might be the problem. Old ideas are their biggest liability. It is a liability simply because they fail to realize that while that idea or way of doing something was an asset yesterday, yesterday is gone.
So again, taking responsibility. If you're not taking responsibility for what is happening to you, you can never make it. It is impossible. So again, we come back to zero limits, right? You are responsible for anything that comes into your awareness. Now, if it comes into your awareness and you're not willing to shift, so there was another saying, whatever you resist persists. So you have to figure out, what are you resisting? And this is true for healing also. When we're using the life system, whatever you're resisting is the problem that is there in your body. So the point is that whenever we resist, we are not allowing things to flow. We become like a break in the flow of things. And that is when all the problems start getting created. So we must be in the flow. We must allow things to happen rather than resisting things. It's easier to go with the flow of a river if we are swimming in it than to go against the tide, right? Instead of resisting, we flow with it. And that makes life much easier.
I find so many people struggling today, often working harder.
Next paragraph.
One afternoon, I was teaching how to invest using a board game. I had invented cash flow as a teaching tool. A friend had brought someone along to attend the class. This friend of a friend was recently divorced, had been badly burned in the divorce settlement, and was now searching for some answers. Her friend thought the class might help. The game was designed to help people learn how money works. In playing the game, they learn about the interaction of the income statement with the balance sheet. They learn how cash flows between the two, how the road to wealth is through striving to increase your monthly cash flow from the asset column to the point that it exceeds your monthly expenses. Once you accomplish this, you are able to get out of the rat race and out onto the fast track.
So, so this is very important. In all the last few chapters that we've read, he talks about creating income from assets which take care of your day-to-day expenses, right? Only then can you have surplus to create more assets and to create to buy the luxuries. So your assets buy the luxuries, not your regular income. That's why savings and creation of assets becomes very important if you want to get out of the rat race.
As I have said, some people hate the game, some love it, and others miss the point. This woman missed a valuable opportunity to learn something. In the opening road, she drew a doodad card with the boat on it. At first, she was happy. Oh, I've got a boat. Then, as her friend tried to explain how the numbers worked on her income statement and balance sheet, she got frustrated because she had never liked math. The rest of her table waited while her friend continued explaining the relationship between the income statement, balance sheet, and monthly cash flow. Suddenly, when she realized how the numbers worked, it dawned on her that her boat was eating her alive. Later on in the game, she was also downsized and had a child. It was a horrible game for her. After the class, her friend came by and told me that she was upset. She had come to the class to learn about investing and did not like the idea that it took so long to play a silly game. Her friend attempted to tell her to look within herself to see if the game reflected her in any way. With that suggestion, the woman demanded her money back. She said that the very idea that a game could be a reflection of her was ridiculous. Her money was promptly refunded and she left.
So again, many people don't get the point, right? To read between the lines.
Since 1984, I have made millions simply by doing what the school system does not do. In school, most teachers lecture. I hated lectures as a student. I was soon bored and my mind would drift. In 1984, I began teaching via games and simulations, and I still rely on these tools today. I always encourage adult students to look at games as reflecting back to them what they know and what they need to learn. Most importantly, games reflect behavior. They are instant feedback systems. Instead of the teacher lecturing you, the game is giving you a personalized lecture, one that is custom made just for you.
So if you want to know about the nature of a person, play a game with him. And it is said that, if you play a game of golf with someone, you know exactly what kind of a character that person is. And this is, I think, true for any game. The way you play the game totally reflects the way that you behave in life also. Again, because the macrocosm is reflected in the microcosm. Now, when do we learn the most? We have to understand that when we have fun, when we are enjoying something, we learn the most. If we are frustrated and we are not attempting to actually engage, then we will never learn anything. Like that lady, she was getting frustrated. She's never going to learn anything. But I think learning through games is a wonderful way of learning. And that's what we attempt to ensure, that we have fun in all the programs that we have. If you're not having fun, then it's no point in attending that program. And again, having fun or not having fun is again a mindset. You have to shift your state of consciousness to be able to actually observe and be aware of it. Shivangla?
Yes. The friend of the woman who left later called to give me an update. She said her friend was fine and had calmed down. In her cooling off period, she could see some slight relationship between the game and her life. Although she and her husband did not own a boat, they did own everything else imaginable. She was angry after their divorce, both because he had run off with a younger woman and because, after 20 years of marriage, they had accumulated little in the way of assets. There was virtually nothing for them to split. Their 20 years of married life had been incredible fun. but all they had accumulated was a ton of doodads.
So a ton of doodads means just liabilities, right? No assets. So what is the definition of an asset versus a liability? An asset is income generating. A liability is income eating, that it demands funds. It demands you put money to have it.
Games reflect behavior, they are instant feedback systems. She realized that her anger at doing the numbers, the income statement, and balance sheet came from her embarrassment about not understanding them. She had believed that finances were the man's job. She maintained the house and did the entertaining, and he handled the finances. She was now quite certain that in the last 5 years of their marriage, he had hidden money from her. She was angry at herself for not being more aware of where the money was going, as well as for not knowing about the other woman. Just like a board game, the world is always providing us with instant feedback. We could learn a lot if we tuned in more. One day, not long ago, I complained to my wife that the cleaners must have shrunk my pants. My wife gently smiled and poked me in the stomach to inform me that the pants had not shrunk. Something else had expanded. Me.
So the universe around us is constantly giving us messages. This is something that we read about in Agora, the left hand of God, where the Agora or the tantric person is constantly aware of what the universe is telling him, what the world around them is telling them. This is also very true of the shamanic principles, where they're constantly watching nature and the messages that nature is giving them. So the more aware we become, the more connected we become, the more we can read between the lines as to what is coming, and then be prepared for what is coming. That is again where we get connected, and we start getting these downloads. We start becoming more aware of what is happening around us. Now, if you're not aware, then something will hit you unawares. Like he was seeing that his pant is shrinking, but actually he was becoming fat. I think many of us are having the same problem today, including me.
The cash flow game was designed to give every player personal feedback. Its purpose is to give you options. If you draw the boat card and it puts you into debt, the question is now what can you do? How many different financial options can you come up with? That is the purpose of the game, to teach players to think and create new and various financial options. Thousands
Okay.
of people.
So what is it saying, right? At any point in time, we will always have choices. We will always have different actions that can be taken, and each of the actions will result in a different thing manifesting. How do we make a choice is the question, right over here. Yes, Indra Bhabi?
Niket, in the previous paragraph, when you were talking about liability and asset,
Yes.
I mean, doesn't that apply to relationships also? I mean, a
101%.
relationship which is a liability depletes you. It
Correct.
takes away from you, and which is an asset adds value to your lives. That's why they say that be careful.
101%.
Be careful when
101%.
you're picking up your friends or the crowd.
101%. So you have to be aware of who you are in a relationship with. Is the person an asset or is the person a liability? Many times we get attached to people who are actually a liability because of emotional issues, right? Now, I'm not telling you to make it cut and dry. The point here is that if anyone is making a hole in our bucket and making us leak, you need to be aware of it and you have to plug the leak. So you need to have options. Like over here, he's saying, suppose I got a doodad, a card as a doodad. Now I have various options to deal with it, right? Now today, maybe that person is your spouse, or maybe it is your child, it may be your sibling, right? You have to figure out whether there, or maybe a very good friend, a friend who has been a friend for 10 years may be a liability today. But again, in relationships, it's a very thin line, right? Someone may actually be in trouble and require your help, but the consciousness with which they are taking the help also starts to matter. Now, many times what happens is that एक चीज का जो life है वो खत्म हो गया. Like we say, age of harmony, right? Now, today, if I go to a property, now a property, you have a relationship with the property also. Now, there's an age of harmony of the property till when the property will be good for you and you will be good for the property. Now, if that age of harmony has crossed and you still want to keep the property, it will automatically turn from an asset to a liability. And I've seen this happening many times. The same with a relationship. You have to gently allow the relationship to go away or to shift or to transform according to what is required at that point in time. If you want to have that same relationship with that person through your life, it is not practical and possible because everyone grows, everyone is shifting. If your frequency of vibration has shifted, you will not resonate with that person. What is there to talk about with that person? Right? For example, let us say a group of friends is there and they get involved in a project. I mean, a group of people get involved in one project and they are involved in that project for 10 years. Right? A friendship also develops. But the core thing which was keeping them together was that project. Now that project is over. Now they don't have any core thing to really keep them together, although there's a gentle friendship. The ghanishta, let's put it that way, which was there when the project was going on, if you expect the same thing to happen later on, it's not going to happen. Right? Now today, you have a relationship with your children. Now, as your children grow up, the relationship is bound to change. Now, if you think that वो जब 2 साल का था वो पल्लू पकड़ के रखता था, now when he is 20 years old भी पल्लू पकड़ के रखेगा, so then there's a problem, right? So you have to take responsibility for what are you contributing to the problem and then transcend it. Very simple.
Thank you.
Now, what can you do? How many different financial options can you come up with? That is the purpose of the game, to teach players to think and create new and various financial options. Thousands of people throughout the world have played this game. The players who get out of the rat race the quickest are the people who understand numbers and have creative financial minds. They recognize different financial options. Rich people are often creative and take calculated risks. People who take the longest are people who are not familiar with numbers and often do not understand the power of investing. Some people playing cash flow gain lots of money in the game, but they don't know what to do with it. Even though they have money, everyone else seems to be getting ahead of them. And that is true in real life. There are a lot of people who have a lot of money and do not get ahead financially. Limiting your options is the game as hanging on to old ideas. I have a friend from high school who now works at 3 jobs. Years ago, he was the richest of all my classmates. When the local sugar plantation closed, the company he worked for went down with the plantation. In his mind, he had but one option, and that was the old option: work hard. The problem was that he couldn't find an equivalent job that recognized his seniority from the old company. As a result, he is overqualified for the jobs he currently has. So his salary is lower. He now works 3 jobs to earn enough to survive.
So what was happening? He was spending all that he was earning, right? He was not saving and he was not building his assets. So plus he could not, now when he lost his job, he had to work 3 jobs to earn the same amount of money. So now you can understand the kind of pressure that he put himself in. Now, this is what in olden times our great grandparents used to do. They used to only spend 50% of their income. So, in case anything happened, they could still survive with half their income. And that is something that we need to learn. All of us actually need to learn. Right now, if he would have survived with half his income, then even if he got a lower paying job, he will still be okay. He would not be in such a big problem that he is there where he has to work 3 jobs.
I have watched people playing cash flow complain that the right opportunity cards are not coming their way. So they sit there. I know people who do that in real life. They wait for the right opportunity. I have watched people get the right opportunity card and then not have enough money. Then they complain that they would have gotten out of the rat race if they had had more money. So they sit there. I know people in real life who do that also. They see all the great deals, but they have no money. And I have
So it's also about resources, how to source the resource, right? So again, one of the main things that is there in the gateway affirmation is learning how to ask for help, right? If you can ask for help, then you can grow your resources also. But always, again, win-win situations for the benefit of all, for the greater good of all.
and I have seen people pull a great opportunity card, read it out aloud, and have no idea that it is a great opportunity. They have the money, the time is right, they have the card, but they can't see the opportunity staring them in the face. They fail to see how it fits into their financial plan for escaping the rat race. And I know more people like that than all the others combined. Most people have an opportunity of a lifetime flash right in front of them, and they fail to see it. A year later, they find out about it after everyone else got rich.
So this is again where intuition, your gut feel, your ability to perceive starts to come into the picture.
Financial intelligence is simply having more options. If the opportunities aren't coming your way, what else can you do to improve your financial position? If an opportunity lands in your lap and you have no money and the bank won't talk to you, what else can you do to get the opportunity to work in your favor? If your hunch is wrong and what you've been counting on doesn't happen, how can you turn a lemon into millions? That is financial intelligence. It is not so much what happens, but how many different financial solutions you can think of to turn a lemon into millions. It is how creative you are in solving financial problems. Most people only know one solution: work hard, save, and borrow. So, why would you want to increase your financial intelligence? Because you want to be the kind of person who creates your own luck. You take whatever happens and make it better. Few people realize that luck is created, that as money is, just as money is. And if you want to be luckier and create money instead of working hard, then your financial intelligence is important. If you are the kind of person who is waiting for the right thing to happen, you might wait for a long time. It's like waiting for all the traffic lights to be green for 5 miles before you'll start your trip.
So again, we come back to who moved my cheese, right? Which of those characters are you? Are you actually just diving into a situation? Are you sniffing around and figuring out what needs to be done? Are you just waiting and watching, knowing that something is going wrong, but not doing anything about it? And the fourth person is turning a blind eye to what is happening, right? Now, if you are intelligent, you're constantly going to be sniffing and always assessing your opportunities so that when something turns, it doesn't hit you on the face and you know exactly what to do, right? So people who make it are always prepared for what is coming. They anticipate what is going to be coming rather than just sitting there watching things happen and not doing anything about it.
As young boys, Mike and I were constantly told by my rich dad that money is not real. Rich Dad occasionally reminded us of how close we came to the secret of money on that first day we got together and began making money out of plaster of Paris. The poor and middle class work for money, he would say. The rich make money. The more real you think money is, the harder you will work for it. If you can grasp the idea that money is not real, you will grow rich faster. What is it? Was a question Mike and I often came back with. What is money if it is not real? What we agree it is, was all Rich Dad would say.
So,
This,
so what does he mean over here, right? What is money? Money is what the society agrees what money is. So in some cultures, the cow is your wealth. In some cultures, land is your wealth. In some cultures, gold is your wealth. In some cultures, dollars is your wealth, right? Now, today, suppose I get a US dollar and I go to a village somewhere and attempt to pay for what I'm buying in India in dollars. The guy has never seen the money. Do you think he's going to accept it? He's not going to accept it, right? Because in his conception, that is not money. He does not know what that is. So we create money. The value that is given to money or anything that we give value to is in our perception. Today, there's a painting. Now, it may cost only 1,000 rupees to make the painting, but it sells for $1 million, right? How does that happen? Who's giving the value? We are giving the value. So when we give the value, a thing becomes valuable. So actually, money is not real.
what we agree it is, was all Rich Dad would say. The single most powerful asset we all have is our mind. If it is trained well, it can create enormous wealth seemingly instantaneously. An untrained mind can also create extreme poverty that can crush a family for generations. In the information age, money is increasing exponentially. A few individuals are getting ridiculously rich from nothing, just ideas and agreements. If you ask many people who trade stocks or other investments for a living, they see it done all the time. Often, millions can be made instantaneously from nothing. And by nothing, I mean no money was exchanged. It is done via agreement. A hand signal is in a trading pit, a blip on a trader's screen in Lisbon, from a trader's screen in Toronto and back to Lisbon, a call to my broker to buy and a moment later to sell. Money did not change hands, agreements did.
So, so basically, what is happening? Today, ideas are more valuable than money. If you have that instinct to make a great trade, you can make a million just like that without even investing anything. Just because of the idea, you can make millions.
The single most powerful asset we all have is our mind. If it is trained well, it can create enormous wealth. So, why develop your financial genius? Only you can answer that. I can tell you why I have been developing this area of my intelligence. I do it because I want to make money fast. Not because I need to, but because I want to. It is a fascinating learning process. I develop my financial IQ because I want to participate in the fastest game and biggest game in the world. And in my own small way, I would like to be a part of this unprecedented evolution of humanity, the era where humans work purely with their minds and not with their bodies. Besides, it is where the action is. It is what is happening. It's hip, it's scary, and it's fun.
So again, a mindset, whether you fear it or you play it.
That is why I invest in my financial intelligence, developing the most powerful asset I have. I want to be with people moving boldly forward. I do not want to be with those left behind. I will give you a simple example of creating money. In the early 1990s, the economy of Phoenix, Arizona was horrible. I was watching a TV show when a financial planner came on and began forecasting doom and gloom. His advice was to save money. Put $100 away every month, he said. In 40 years, you will be a multimillionaire. Well, putting money away every month is a sound idea. It is one option, the option most people subscribe to. The problem is this: it blinds the person to what is really going on. It causes them to miss major opportunities for much more significant growth of their money. The world is passing them by. As I said, the economy was terrible at that time. For investors, this is the perfect market condition. A chunk of my money was in the stock market and in apartment houses. I was short of cash. Because people were giving properties away, I was buying. I was not saving money. I was investing. Kim and I more than Kim and I had more than $1 million in cash working in a market that was rising fast. It was the best opportunity to invest. The economy was terrible. I could not pass up these small deals. Houses that were once $100,000 were now $75,000. But instead of shopping with local real estate agents, I began shopping at the bankruptcy attorney's office or the courthouse steps. In these shopping places, a 75,000 house could sometimes be bought for $20,000 or less. For $2,000, which was loaned to me from a friend for 90 days for $200, I gave an attorney a cashier's check as a down payment. While the acquisition was being processed, I ran an ad advertising a 75,000 house for only $60,000 and no money down. The phone rang hard and heavy. Prospective buyers were screened, and once the property was legally mine, all the prospective buyers were allowed to take a look at the house. It was a feeding frenzy. The house sold in a few minutes. I asked for a $2,500 processing fee, which they gladly handed over, and the escrow and the title company took over from there. I returned the $2,000 to my friend with an additional $200. He was happy, the home buyer was happy, the attorney was happy, and I was happy. I had sold a house for $60,000 that cost me $20,000. The $40,000 was created from money in my asset column in the form of a promissory note from the buyer. Total working time 5 hours. So now that you are on your way to becoming more financially literate and skilled at reading numbers, I will show you why this is an example of money being invested.
So over here you see $40,000 he has as an asset, which is going to start giving him resources. Now he invested $20,000, which is a liability. So he has to pay this out, right? But he has got an asset of $40,000 because the asset value of the entire house was 60,000. And this is now going to start creating income for him. And the mortgage is going to take taxes and mortgage payments as an expense. So naturally, $40,000 is going to earn more than $20,000, which is in his liability side. And over here, he says that 40,000 ke upar mein, he is going to earn 10% every year. That is $4,000 every year as income.
During this depressed market, him and I were able to do 6 of these simple transactions in our spare time. While the bulk of our money was in larger properties and the stock market, we were able to create more than $190,000 in assets. Notes at 10% interest in those 6 buy, create, and sell transactions. That comes to approximately $19,000 a year income, much of it sheltered through our private corporation. Much of that $19,000 a year goes to pay for our company cars, gas, trips, insurance, dinners with clients, and other things. By the time the government gets a chance to tax that income, it's been spent on legally allowed pre-tax expenses.
So now what happened? All the income that they're generating in their company, their private cars, their trips, all the massages, all the dinners, everything is being debited in the company before tax, right? So the tax, whatever is left after all that they have spent, only that is going to be taxed, right? Plus they will claim depreciation, plus they will claim the interest, the mortgage payments which are being made will also be debited from that. So literally all their expenses are being debited in the corporation, and it is all being debited before tax. So over here, just go down, Shivangla. So over here, if you have a job, right, and you earn a salary, and then you pay taxes as income, which is maybe 40 or 50% tax. Okay, so you're paying the tax and then you are saving the money. So how long will it take you to save $40,000 when 50% of your income is going in taxes?
This was a simple example of how money is invented, created, and protected using financial intelligence. Ask yourself, how long would it take to save $190,000? Would the bank pay you 10% interest on your money? And the promissory note is good for 30 years. I hope they never pay me the $190,000. I have to pay a tax if they pay me the principal. And besides, $19,000 paid over 30 years is a little over $500,000 in income.
So again, the interest rate in America is like 1 or 2%, right? And they are earning 10% on their investment. And they're earning it free because they never really invested anything. They invested $2,000 and paid $2,000 interest on that, and they got back $2,500. So actually, they made $300 right in the beginning of the transaction. They took a liability of $20,000, but they created an asset of $60,000 on which they are constantly earning money.
I have people ask what happens if the person doesn't pay. That does happen, and it's good news. That $60,000 home could be taken back and resold for $70,000, and another $2,500 collected as a loan processing fee. It would still be a zero down transaction in the mind of the new buyer, and the process would go on.
So, So I think we can stop here. It's 2:15. Acha, go ahead.
The first time I sold the house, I paid back the 2000. So technically, I have no money in the transaction. My return on investment, ROI, is infinity. It's an example of no money making a lot of money. In the second transaction, when resold, I would have put $2,000 in my pocket and re-extended the loan to 30 years. What would my ROI be if I got paid money to make money? I do not know, but it sure beats saving $100 a month, which actually starts out as 150 because it's after tax income for 40 years earning low interest. And again, you're taxed on the interest. That is not too intelligent. It may be safe, but it's not smart.
Okay, I think we can stop here.